this is already the first step of liberty of interpretation of what we are going through and how we judge ourselves, and also interpretation of what we are reading, in what time we are reading this book. Okay, so what's the real point of all this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know we've kind of focused on being, and we've gone through kind of the importance of that as a foundation. But there's another concept in here that we didn't really get to talk about, which is spicy. And spicy is a really important thing because spicy is about your purpose, right? Because there's the internal part of you that you're honing yourself so that you can be who you espouse to be, right? And there's a whole lot of learning that's going on that journey. But then there's still the interaction with the world, right? And by the way, you're already always being somebody. But then what? And so spicy, I did a lot of work on purpose, right? So what is purpose? Like what is my reason for being? And when it comes to being, it's being for itself in the end. But then there's still the outside part, and we're going to have to deal with that. So spicy is another acronym, like safety is an acronym, spicy is an acronym. And spicy's kind of like a checklist of when you're creating that thing that is your purpose in life to make sure it meets all of these criteria, right? So spicy starts with S, stable. It's whatever you're going to pick, you want it to be stable. You don't want it to be something that's going to change from week to week or month to month. It's something that seems like a long-term thing that's in your life. It's got to be personally meaningful. Like it's got to be personally meaningful for me. It's got to be inspirational not only to myself, but also to others. It needs to be community involved. So it needs to include other people. And this one ends up being really terribly important because of what we talked about, us being kind of a social species. But when it comes to the community-oriented part, it's like if I want to just get rich for me, then you end up being the rich, lonely person. And those are the types of things we want to avoid, where it's like I want to have something, this thing I want to have for me, but you've kind of ignored everything else. You've thrown everything else out for it. So it has to include community, and a community has to be part of it, meaning you want it to be for other people, not just for you. And there's a really important part to that. One of them is legacy. Because when we think about our life purpose long term, we have to think about what's going to be after we're gone. And there's an old saying that I love that says that old men plant trees knowing they won't live to enjoy the shade. And I think when it comes to legacy, those are a way that we all want to be. We want to build something that goes on beyond us. But if we're going to do that, it has to be for other people. It has to be about other people. It has to be stuff that is benefiting other people that they want to continue afterwards. So you have to have community, and it's a really important part. And the last one is your why. What gets you out of bed? You have to be willing to put your time and your energy and effort, because if it's about your purpose, you got to be willing to do it, right? This is about something you're putting into the world, right? Your purpose. It's something it doesn't exist. John F. Kennedy, he put into the world the ability to go to the moon, and then other people kept it on, and then now they're going back after it again. So we want that to be the type of thing that we do, not going to the moon, but maybe our own moonshot. Something, and it doesn't have to be a shot to the moon. It can be something simple, right? My purpose in life may be as simple as raising my children, raising my family as a single mother, doing the best I can so my child is a functional member of society and does better than I did, or does better than does everything that is possible for them without burdening them with that, right? Without burdening them with expectations, but just that's your donation to the world. That's what you're putting into the world, and it's for that child. It's for the community around. It's for something else. Maybe it's helping out with a local organization that's helping homeless shelters, or whatever it is for you. It can be anything, but you still have to be willing to put in the energy. You have to be willing to put in the time, and so that's where we get to, right? But you can't do that very well if you don't have yourself under control first. If your brain's driving you in all 50 million different directions, it's really hard to put something into the world honestly, because you're being tossed around and you're being manipulated by everything, and all these strings pulling, all these buttons being pressed, and you're going forward. And you can. Nothing wrong with it. Lots of people do it. But there's another way. Start with who you are. And then when you're bringing something into the world, you're doing it in an aligned way. So we talk about, raising children as a single mom. There's a ton of strings pulling you. There's a ton of things that are pulling you around. Should I? Stupid brain stuff. Should I? What should I do? What are other people's expectations? Then you put it all on the child. That's not aligned, right? So the question is, okay, this is who I am. Now I'm going forward. I'm cutting out all those things that are not aligned. And then there's a possibility, a group of possibilities there that are huge. But at least those possibilities don't include all these unaligned things that can be totally causing all kinds of things because they're just my buttons. They're just my emotional problems. They're my past stories. They're my things. And I'm putting them all on this project or on this person. So spicy's the purpose. That's where we get to purpose in life. That's where we get to purpose in all of this is first I take care of myself and then I go and I make the world a better place. Right? But it's really hard. Or let's say what a lot of people do is they want to make the world a better place in order to hide from themselves, in order to hide from their own problems. Right? They want to change other people, they want to change the world, they want to change everything, but they haven't dealt with themselves first. So first you deal with yourself, and that's why we start with being, and then you do the spicy part. And then over time, that's why I like the spicy, because then you make your life a spicy life. And we're going to have an advanced course. And the advanced course is you actually taking on projects that are spicy projects, and you learn how to do them. You learn how to do them from the base of who you are, and then go forward and motivate, persuade, and inspire people in order to put that into the world, to support you in putting that into the world. And you give it up. It's not about you. It's about this thing that's for the community. So we'll get to the advanced course, I hope, end of 2021 or beginning of 2022.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. It's also one thing which I remember you told me earlier also when we first met, that this book is addressing to whom for you. It's like it's for you. Can you give us idea about the generation, or according to the of course you can, I understand it's about everybody in the world who lives in Asia or as well as in Western country, but is there any kind of a age group to whom you are targeting, or is there something like that we can put?
Yeah, I mean, let's say I think some of the concepts might not be suited for people under 18.
Mm-hmm.
Though if they're ready, right, then under 18 is okay. But it doesn't really necessarily have an age range. In fact, I have people taking the course who are retirees. I have a lot of people taking the course that are in their 30s, and I have some people that are just graduating from university. So we're already always being somebody. And the question is, when are you ready to start confronting this and then doing something with it? And then you're ready for the course. So it's more about you being ready than it is about necessarily an age or a situation. I've done my best not to make it too complicated, so we don't dig into deep philosophical terms or anything. And it's very practical. So there's worksheets that walk you through the things. We have meetings with me. So I have a kind of group meetings where we talk about the different topics. We talk about the different problems people share, what they're dealing with. And so it's not really, and I think what's really interesting is when you have older people and younger people talking about what they're dealing with and understanding that we're all facing the same types of things. There really isn't that much difference between a person who's 22 and a person who's 65 when it comes to what do I want to do next? How do I be me? What are the problems that are confronting me? The specifics of the problems that are different with age, that's obviously true and absolutely true. But the reality is we're dealing with human problems. And though the conditions might be a bit different, the specifics are quite similar. We're dealing with the problems with our brain and how our brain's getting in our way. We're dealing with our fears. We're dealing with the pressures from other people. We're dealing with all of those same types of things. And in the end, we maybe want the same thing. We want to put something into the world that we're proud of. We want to help other people. We want to do these things. 65 and at 22, those specifics may be different, but the generalities are very consistent. And I think it's great when we come together in the course and we hear older people and younger people talking a bit and sharing and understanding how much they actually do have in common on these things. So that's actually one of the uplifting parts for me teaching the course, is to hear those stories and to talk to the people about them.
Thank you very much, Christoph.
Thanks. I hope I answered all your questions.
Yeah, I think it was a very rich discussion, and it gives me more idea about how to dig inside when I'm reading your book. Right? It's more about how to position myself and how to be more flexible of getting different kind of interpretations according to when I'm reading this book, which time of my life, which morning, after which kind of emotion, or when it's finishing, or when I didn't complete it, and if I go back to certain chapters, it's more like this interview helps me also to position myself according to the chapter I'm reading.
Great. Yeah, I know that you've started reading it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going through it, and I saw your book. You're like covered in notes.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah, because as if it's a constant dialogue which is happening when we are reading your book, and it's questioning ourselves. So it's as you said, talk about the self development. It's already through the book we are rereading our own life in a different. But it's always like in which moment I'm reading that book. It's like a constant conversation I'm having it when I'm reading it.
Yeah, I mean that's the beautiful thing about it. It's like life is a journey, and what this does is it's going, okay, here's a way to create something so that you can see where you're getting in your own way. You can bump up against it and see where you're getting in your own way. And in different parts of your life, different things may bump, right? So it's like a process it's like a tool bag that you take on your journey, right? But it's still your journey, and your journey is full of possibilities. And what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to limit the possibilities. I wanted to expand them, and I wanted to focus them. And so it's kind of cool that you say that, because that's good, right? That's the experience of it.
Yeah, like what I understand in the first few chapters was there were no common morals. It was like nothing good and nothing bad. So when you begin to read and when you begin to project what you are reading according to what is happening in your life, you will not going to judge yourself. You will definitely going to observe what you are doing as an action and what are the troubles or decisions you are making. But sometimes when we are categorizing it with bad and good, and what I really like it in this book is about those moral values we are questioning it. So this is already the first step of liberty of interpretation of what we are going through and how we judge ourselves, and also interpretation of what we are reading, in what time we are reading this book. So that's one of the...
Yeah, but in fact, it's really interesting, this conversation about good and bad. Because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. And it's a very difficult topic, because as soon as you want to make rules of good and bad, it becomes pretty tough to do. I mean, let's take the golden rule: do unto others what you would want done unto you. Really? I get it's a good baseline, it's a good starting point, but maybe I have some preferences that you would find horrible. You wouldn't want that, right? For example, maybe I'm looking for a trainer. I want a trainer who pushes me really, really hard to exercise because I want to be really, really good. And then, so because I want that type of trainer, then I put it on you, because I'm not doing to you what I wouldn't want done to me, because that's what I would want done to me. But it's totally neglecting what you want. So I think it's a good starting point, but it doesn't tell right and wrong, because it's discounting actually what you want, which might be very different than what I want. So, I also don't like the relativism idea that, that there is no such thing as good and bad, because it just doesn't make logical sense to me. So I think there must be good and bad. But then when I look at it, I say, but maybe what good and bad is it ends up being what I say. Like, I create good and bad in a certain way. Because, there's a lot of things that one person would say was bad that for me are good. Like eating meat. Some people would say, oh, that's terrible. And some people would say, no, eating meat's great. So I look at it, and I really struggled with this whole good and bad thing. So what I decided to do instead was kind of focus in a different way. And in the book, I focus on the being part, because I think that what's going to come out more, and like, for example, love, to be a stand for the life of somebody else. For me, that's a much better definition of good and bad, because if I'm going to be a stand for your life, I have to learn something about you. It's for you. It's not for me. It's not about me. It's about you. And then I can be wrong because I don't perfectly know you. So I'm always doing my best, which is a reality of our situation. No matter how well I know you, I can never really know you fully. Like, only you know yourself fully. So the fact that it's a process of being a stand for the life of somebody else means I'm always having to learn. I'm always having to observe. I'm always looking out to figure this out, right? But the thing is, if you think about it, like soldiers in a war, right? When you're standing next to somebody that you really care about, your brother in arms, and you're going to die by their side, you're always looking at what they're going to need next. I can't dictate and write down on a thing, this is good and bad in the war zone. This is how it's going to be. This is what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. No. It's in the moment. In the moment, this is what you need. I can see that you need it, and I must stand for you. So this is what I'm going to do. So this makes good and bad really hard to predefine. So if I'm just declaring who I am, and then I'm living into that, the good and bad become more obvious as I get into the instant. And will I make mistakes? Yes, because there's no way to not make mistakes. Like, this is life. Life is about failure a lot of times. In fact, there's no way in life to not fail. Like, you're guaranteed in life to fail. So just get over it. You're going to fail. And you're going to fail one of three different ways. You're either going to not do anything to avoid failure and then feel like a failure because you didn't do anything, or you're going to do stuff and you're going to make mistakes and you're going to fail, right? Or then you can learn from them, which is one way to go forward, or you cannot learn from them. And those are the kind of the three options that you have. So there's no way to not fail. So you might as well get used to it, right? And so when it comes to this good and bad, we tend to judge bad as what's failure? Failure to be a good human being, which I hate that idea, because I don't know how you fail to be a human being, right? You're a human being because that's how you were born. So I just kind of avoided that topic in a certain way, maybe wrongly so. But I definitely think there is a right and a wrong and a good and a bad. I just don't think it's my place to define it.
When you are asking, when you are talking about this, the sharing of a knowledge, that means there is something which is lacking. Of course, you answered me before also. But what I would like to put forward is this education system, right? When you talk about the book, when you talk about the class, we can also read it or observe it as it's a educational business, right? But there is also the whole idea of education, since we are small, being controlled by certain theory or certain values. So just to find your position about this relation of a education system, how you define that, how you can not define or protect, I don't know what could be the question, but the scientific doubt you have, how you make them visible to others, because it's also about questioning something and that you don't find the answer, so that you go for the quest, right? So how you put forward in your class or when you meet, because through book of course you express, but when you have to put the grain of those doubts. So what do you think about it? Is it necessary, or it's important, or how you do it? Or
yeah, I mean, so one of the reasons people hate doubts is that need for security, that need for consistency and certainty. But the reality is we don't live with that. And what a school system does is it wants to give you a sense of security. And the school system was already built a long time ago, and it's built during the Industrial Revolution for a different purpose than we're doing today. But when it comes to like scientific doubt, there's two things I want to be careful to avoid. The one being that some people doubt science. And I absolutely don't doubt science. I think science is brilliant. I think it's been one of the greatest things of human history and of human development, because it's allowed us to discover things with empirical evidence, right? And I think that's been wonderful for us. However, part of the foundation of science is doubt, but it's doubt in a very specific way. It's doubt in okay, this is what all the data is showing. What if? What if this was put together in a different way, this puzzle? Because there isn't a lot of certainty in the data, right? The data is telling a story, but it takes us to put that story into a context that's functional and useful, and that's allowing us to explore further and go further. Right? That's why a lot of scientists say they stand on the shoulders of giants, because there's a lot of people that have come before them that have had to put this information together, because we don't have all the information. We have pieces of information, and they create a picture. And then people use that new picture in order to have a new hypothesis. But that means that you have to look at it critically. You have to look at it with doubt. You have to look at it in a way that you're saying, okay, this is what all the data is showing, but what does this mean? And how can it take it go further? And how can I explore what's further? And part of what we do in the course and in the stories workbook, this is very clear. In the being, it's not as clear. because you're basically exploring from the being. The being is this hard rock that you're beating up against to explore and understand. That's just the process of it. In the stories workbook, I actually have you create a hypothesis and say, this is the stories that I'm looking at in my life, the stories I tell myself. And this is a story I could tell myself. If I tell myself the story, this is what I'm worried is going to happen. I'm worried about this. Let's create some safe tests, and let's test and see if I'm right or if I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, what does this tell me about what I've been looking at before? So this concept of scientific doubt, it's built into the course in some of the worksheets and some of the activities because our life is so uncertain. And we create certainty artificially because that's how our brain works. And some of the times that's what's holding us away from the alignment, from having alignment in our lives. And our school system doesn't have a way to do this. And so a lot of people are relearning this, or some people are getting it from their religion, because religion is doing some of this in a certain way. I don't necessarily think it's doing it in a good way. Some could be great, but I'm not certain that it's the best way to do it. I'm not certain that this way is the best way to do it. This course may be great for some people, not great for others. So this is a way. It's a way to help the school system, to supplement the school system maybe, and in a place that maybe they don't have the space to do. Maybe it doesn't fit it. There's no standardized test for this, right? There's no, you don't get to go to college because you did this. There's no job for this, right? There's none of that stuff that's an output for this. So this is a supplement. So I'm not surprised the schools can't offer it because it doesn't give any of those things that people are looking for. But I think it's one of those things that's missing. And so this is a way to put it into the world. And this is my Spicy Passion project, to be fair enough. I think this could make a difference for some people, and I want to make sure it's available to them. So that's, I guess, how I've done it. And then there's the opportunity to talk with me, in which case we bring in these group sessions, we bring in some of these questioning, some of these concepts. I am able to push people a little bit in certain areas based on what they tell me. That allows it to drive those conversations forward and drive the thinking forward, right? Because it is a way of thinking. It's a mentality. It's a approach.